Hi, it's Paul from Model Builder International. Don't forget, subscribe button is down there as always. You know what to do with that. Today we're going to have a look at a new kit from Platz. This is a double boxing of their 1/44th scale P-47D. Okay, so a bit of history, and I'm just going to talk about P-47Ds. If you want to know about the earlier versions of the P-47 and the later ones, have a look at Wikipedia. So P-47Ds was the most produced version with 12,500 built, but the D model actually consisted of a series of evolving production blocks, the last of which were very different from the first, and the first of which were identical to P-47Cs. You could not tell the difference. Those were produced by Republic. Basically, they built a new plant at Evansville, Indiana. And here's an interesting bit. When you see the whole name of a particular aircraft like P-47D-1-RA, the RA means it's produced at Evansville, and RE at the end means it's produced at Republic's Farmingdale factory. So the P-47D-1 through 6, the 10 and the 11 slowly incorporated changes. Most of them are all internal, you'd never spot the difference. Subtle changes, you might be able to spot a different engine and cooling flaps around the back of the cowling. Those was changed in those variants. The P-47D-15, that one added on basically wet drop tanks, so they could have fuel tanks underneath the wings. The D-16s, 20s, 22s, 23s were very similar to the D-15 with minor improvements to fuel systems, engine subsystems, canopy, windshield. But starting with Block 22 aircraft, Dash 22s, the propeller changed. That'll be an easily noticeable difference. And they moved from the original narrow-chorded Curtiss propeller to the big Hamilton standard propeller with a 13 feet diameter and just 6 inches of ground clearance. That meant that Thunderbolt pilots had to learn to be careful on takeoffs and landings, because it was easy to get the propeller into the ground and mess the ground up and your propeller. Even with 2 Republic plants rolling out the P-47, there was still a demand for as many Thunderbolts as they could get. So the Curtiss started building the aircraft in Buffalo, New York, but they had some serious problems building these. So these were actually called P-47Gs, and none of them left the United States. So they were kept behind, but they are identical to P-47Ds. The first P-47G was basically a P-47C. The G1 was identical to the C1, while the following G5, G10 and G15 were actually P-47D1s, D5s and D10s. Up to now I've just been talking about the Razorback P-47s without the bubble canopy. This kit has bubble top P-47s. And this actually started with both the American and the British problem with not enough visibility from their fighters. So it started off with the Malcolm hood, which was a canopy for the Spitfire. This type of canopy was fitted in the field to many P-51s and a handful of P-47Ds. However, then the British came up with a much better solution, the all-round vision bubble canopy for the Typhoon, and that was quickly adapted to American fighters, P-51 and the Thunderbolt. The first P-47 with a bubble canopy was a modified D5 in the summer of '43, and another older P-47D was modified with an internal fuel capacity of 370 gallons. The bubble canopy and increased fuel capacity were then rolled into production together, resulting in the P-47D-25s. So the D-25s is what you'll see here. First deliveries began in May 1944. And then there was similar bubble top variants, the D26, 27, 28, 30, continuing to slowly improve things, and also adding in high velocity aircraft rockets, computing guns sight, which was actually licensed built copy of the British Ferranti computing gyroscopic sight. And the bubble top P-47s were nicknamed Super Bolts by combat pilots in the field, apparently. Okay, so let's have a look, see what we get inside the box. It's a P-47D bubble top, 144th scale, 2 planes included, decals by Cartograph, 4 schemes it says. On the side there, a couple of the schemes. And there's the 4 schemes on the back there. Pretty colourful ones actually. There's much there. Let's open it up and have a look-see. It's pretty snugly packed in there. So there's the instructions, and there's the decal sheet. Instructions pretty straightforward for this scale as usual. Basic cockpit, things, fuselage halves, wings, engine, fuel tank, landing gear, putting the big bits together, adding the things that hang on underneath, and inside full colour decal placement and painting guides. Paints are in, what is this, Mr. Colour and Model Master. So it's pretty good. I'll have a better look at the instructions in a second. Let's have a quick look at these parts. I'll just open these up. Two canopies, obviously, all wrapped actually separately, so they're not going to rub on things. 2 fuselages. It's actually nice fine detail on there. I can feel the panel lines. Now you get a choice. There's actually 3 propellers per aircraft to choose from. Engines. And wings. Nice raised detail, and also recessed panel lines. So yeah, for the scale they look pretty neat. I'm interested in why there's 3 propellers on each one. So it just says to use C7, which is that one. But my guess is that if they did other versions of the P-47, then these propellers would get used. So let's have a close look at the instructions and a close look at some of the parts. So a bit of history about the P-47Ds in 1/44th scale. So doing a bit of digging, looks like there's only ever been 6 new toolings of the kit. One was in resin from FE resin models around about the year 2000. There's been quite a few reboxings. Interestingly, the 2 newest toolings haven't been reboxed by anybody other than the people who originally did them. That's Platz. Platz's original boxing was 2008, and F-Toys, which I think are also from Japan, they did a new boxing in 2013. The earlier boxings by Crown in the 70s, Guns Sangamo again in the 70s, and Trumpeter in the 90s, those 3 have been reboxed the most times, sort of some of them 3 or 4 times each by different companies, or by 3 or 4 different companies, and then reboxings again. So those are the ones you'll see mostly around the market, but the most recent ones to watch out for is Platz and F-Toys. But obviously the Platz one being most recently reboxed with this particular kit here. Each kit comprises of 35 parts. Remember, there's 2 kits in the box, and it looks like you'd use all 35 apart from 2 propellers, so you'd have 2 propellers left over. Now we'll go through the instructions. Obviously with the 1/44th scale kit, there's not that many parts. So step one, we put together the fuselage halves. There's a rudimentary canopy inside there. Maybe add a couple of little thin pieces of Tamiya tape for seat belts, but that's about all of it. Step two, put the engine together inside its cowling. It looks reasonably well detailed for a 1/44th scale kit. Step three, putting the wings together, one piece lower wing, two piece upper wings. Put those together. The wings have the machine gun nozzles moulded onto them and a pitot tube. Step four is the undercarriage legs, simple 3-piece legs. Each leg, one leg, one gear wheel door and the wheel itself. You also have a fuel tank that, if you're going to use it, you put together at this stage. That's the big belly tank. Then up to step four is basically adding these pieces together, the fuselage, the wings, the engine and the two tailplanes and a single aerial. And then it also, at this stage, interestingly, it puts the picture to the right has the undercarriage legs on and armament under the wings, but you don't add those till the next step. It says step 6 is painting and applying decals, which makes sense because step 7 is adding all the small bits on the outside. Adding the undercarriage legs, then you have the options. I say options of adding things under the wings, but you'd need to have filled in the holes beforehand. You've got bombs, you've got high velocity rockets, you've got 3 propellers in the kit, obviously it's C7 that you're going to fit. Add the canopy, the tail wheel, so basically adding all the small parts, and obviously by this stage you should be pretty much finished. Then I'll talk about decals and painting. Get a nice colourful guide with images of both sides of the aircraft and top and bottom. The aircraft are all going to be in natural aluminium for the most part, so there should be a pretty straightforward painting job. That'll make life easy for you. Just got a bit of green to add along the top of the fuselage, and that's your painting done. And then it's decals. Decals are done by Cartograph, so I don't anticipate any problems whatsoever there. But you should end up with a couple of really colourful aircraft. My favourites are always the ones with the flashier ones, so Balls Out and maybe Miss Anne as well. They'll be my faves. So an overall conclusion, you get 2 kits in the box, quite nicely detailed for a 1/44th scale. They're modern 1/44th scale, not something, should say, back 40 odd years ago from the 70s. So they do show some nice designs. You could actually quite easily add more detail to these if you wanted to, but they're pretty neat little aircraft. Platz do some really nice 1/44th scale kits, and many thanks to Platz for sending it along for us to have a look at.